Wanda Jean Barry, or more fondly known as Mimi by all of her many grandchildren, was born in 1932 to her parents Catherine and Hubert Barry, and I am convinced that the world was made better the second that she entered it. She had an older brother, Curtis, and later gained a younger sister named Gail. When asking my grandma what event shaped her life the most, she immediately thought of a few events from her childhood and a very life-altering event that occurred when she was a mother. All of the things that Mimi talked about have shaped our family's history and have impacted each of us in some way. The first thing that Mimi talked about was the main thing that shaped her childhood, and that was moving all around Texas. Her father worked in the oil fields, and he just went to work wherever it was available. They moved 8 times over the course of her childhood, and so that meant 8 different schools for the children and 8 new chances to make friends in different places. Mimi said that she was so blessed by this because it really gave her the opportunity to meet all kinds of different people and to broaden her horizons. She also said that this aspect of her childhood was so foundational and is important to her because it shows such a clear picture of how close her family was and still is. Through every move, they stuck together as a family to adjust to their new homes. And regardless of the change in location, family always came first to her parents. There was never a shortage of love in their household. Mimi cites her brother, Curtis, going off to war when he was 18 as another event that shaped her childhood and life, as he became part of the Coast Guard during World War II. She said that it was one of the scariest times of her life, and that her whole family sat on pins and needles while waiting to hear of his well-being. At one point, Curtis's ship was even hit, but by the grace of the Lord, as Mimi says, he was okay and survived. This event was another part of her childhood that she says unified her family, and that they all stuck together in their worry and concern, and really understood how fragile and beautiful life was during that time. After discussing her childhood and thinking about the next major event in her life, Mimi quickly thought of an event that shaped our family's history in a major way and is still a very delicate topic of conversation. To provide some background knowledge, when my Mimi married my papa, Calvin Ferris, and became Wanda Jean Ferris in 1953, they quickly began having children. Danny was the firstborn, and then there was Vicky, and then there was Cindy, and then there was Gina, which is my mom. Their children have always been their pride and joy. When Danny was 19 years old, he got into a terrible, terrible car accident that left him in critical condition for a very long time and in the hospital for an entire year with several major injuries. During this time, Mimi and Papa lived in the parking lot of the hospital that was 60 miles away from their home in an RV and took turns being inside of the hospital tending to Danny. That left my aunt and mom at home, so both sets of grandparents, my great-grandparents, had to take turns taking care of the home that my grandparents had to so hurriedly leave behind, and the 2 girls that just missed their mom, dad, and brother. That split-second accident altered the lives of my family completely and forced them to have to lean on God like never before. There they were, 60 miles away from everything they knew, sitting with their son who was so close to death that the sheer fact that he was breathing was a miracle. Mimi says that that was undoubtedly the hardest, most impactful time of her life, and that they so unexpectedly and quickly had to make an enormous life change that not only impacted them, but every member of their family in such a dramatic way. Mimi ties this back to the family values that her dad taught her, and that family always comes first, and it was not even a question to her that she would stick there with her son and be holding his hand all the way through his recovery. Mimi added that it was unbearable to have to leave her younger kids for that long, but it was necessary, and she believes that it taught them all so much about patience, compassion, and utter reliance on the Lord's faithfulness. This season of life, like the time when her brother Curtis was in war, made her really appreciate the gift and beauty of life, and especially the gift and the beauty that is family. All of those events are so significant not only to my Mimi's life, but to the person that I am as well. Mimi's strong family values growing up and the unconditional love shown to her throughout seasons of trial and change are both elements of her childhood that have richly blessed me today. She and my grandpa have loved each other, my mom, and all of their other children with everything that they have, and in turn have taught my mom how to love with that same intensity and passion. There has never been a time when I have felt any type of shortage of love, and it all points back to the way that my great-grandparents modeled this type of adoration for my Mimi. My Uncle Danny's accident has also made a huge impact on me in more ways than one, but I think that the main thing is the intense understanding that my family has passed down through the generations of how fragile life is. Even though I was not alive when this accident happened, my Mimi still reminds me often of the impact that this life-altering event had on our family and how we have to look at every day as a complete gift from the Lord. We are not promised tomorrow, so for today, we have to focus on loving the Lord with all our hearts, loving our neighbors as ourselves, and loving our family with everything that we have, whether that means hugging them before they head off to work or sleeping in the hospital parking lot for an entire year praying through the recovery. My Mimi is a selfless, brave, beautiful woman, and through the events in her history that has shaped her, she has had a huge hand in shaping me into the person that I am today.